equally as funny. I am your host, Coach Woody, and with me back in the building, virtual, is Kristin Rinkel. Kristin, how is Colorado?
It's so good. It's amazing. The lack of humidity is a wonderful thing. I'm loving it.
Absolutely, we Hoosiers, we do enjoy our humidity, or at least we live through it, whether we enjoy it or not. But although it did drop in August, surprisingly, it is now getting down to 55 degrees at night. Currently, it's like
Nice.
65 sunny with zero humidities. So jokes on you. You left right before the most perfect days, but I can almost guarantee it'll be back. So I'm excited. I'm excited for you to be out there in Colorado doing your thing. Obviously, organizational psychology and leadership is something that you're very passionate about, and I'm excited for you to live it, learn it, so then you can then teach it, because that's an important aspect about being a coach, is your ability to speak into the things that you are teaching others.
I'm really looking forward to it. And the weather does also drop like 20 degrees every night.
Yeah,
It's beautiful.
absolutely. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, Colorado. I have heard good things. Been there. Also enjoyed those good things. So, what's something not weather related? What's something that you've learned in your first 2 weeks, 1 week?
I think I've been here for about 4 weeks.
4 weeks? Wow, where did I go?
Yeah, no,
Uh,
right?
so, what
Yeah,
have
me
you
too.
learned organizationally? What was an aha moment for you in these first 4 weeks?
You have two ears and one mouth.
Mm,
And that can definitely go a really long way. And to, in a conversation, just really prioritize explaining that you hear the other person too. So, with the one mouth that you have, don't just immediately start talking about what your opinions are or anything, and reiterate what the other person said. Simple, simple truth.
yeah, yeah. People want to be heard, right? I,
Mhm.
I I teach this to a lot of other coaches, and it's so simple. And people, it's funny. We're always constantly as humans trying to find the next thing, right? Like, what's the next trick? What's the I've heard of that. This thing called active listening, right? Like, that's not working. What else? It's been around for a very, very long time for a very, very good reason. So I love that sentiment that you shared, which is when you are working with someone, whether you want to call it selling or relationships or whatever, until you know what they're trying to get out of this relationship, it's really hard to provide value. And that's ultimately what you're trying to do through quote unquote selling, is provide value. So
Mhm.
I love that. You have to be able to
Mhm.
explain back to them what they said. My clients almost, I actually once had a client who told me, gave me some feedback, which I really appreciated. He's like, you say the term, so what I'm hearing is all the time, to the point where it's sounding inauthentic. And I was like, I really appreciate that. One of his values, ironically, was authenticity, right? And so I really appreciate it, because it's true. I use that term because it's one of my cues to say back to them what I heard. And so now I just use
Mhm.
different terms that mean the same exact thing, right? Like, so what I'm hearing is, so what you're telling me, what I heard from that was something that I'm noticing is, right? Like, all of these different things where you basically get to repeat back. And a lot of people think that's stalling, or that's just, fluff. But there's a lot of times where I say that, and the person that's listening goes, well, no, that's not quite what I meant. What I actually meant was, and it just allows you to dive deeper, right? Do you remember
Mhm.
when we talked about what the best question is?
Oh, yes. I don't remember it.
Obviously very impactful, right? The best question, the best question is the one that leads to a deeper understanding. And so,
Why?
yeah, right. So it's a deeper understanding, and it leads to a deeper question. I almost always am trying
Mhm.
to get to another question that's deeper than that. And so, regardless of the answer, right, the answer is going to help. It can't just be a lie, a fabrication, but the ultimate goal is to get deeper. And so that response of trying to get them to repeat back what they said to you is a really powerful way to get deeper, because they may explain it in a different way, or they may say,
Mhm.
yes, absolutely. Or they may say, well, you heard this, but what I really was trying to get at was that. And I love that that's one of the earliest things you're learning in this idea of quote unquote selling, because that's Selling is just listening and then determining whether or not what you have to offer is going to help them. And if it's not, then don't offer it.
Yeah. It's simple communication. It's just trying to like overlap each other's worldviews so it can make sense, so you can look through the same lens, I feel like.
Absolutely, absolutely. I remember this picture. It's kind of a meme. It's kind of a cartoon. I don't remember exactly, but there's two people facing each other, and on the ground is a symbol. And you're looking at it from the side as the viewer of the cartoon, but each one of those individuals is looking at it from the top and the bottom, and it's the number 6. But depending on where you're standing, one of them sees a 6 and one of them sees a 9, and they're both right. And it's that sentiment of, there's no right or wrong in this situation. It's a matter of perspective. And until you can step onto the other side of that person's perspective and really look at it from their lens, try to take an empathetic approach of figuring out what they're truly seeing and what they're truly trying to say, it's when you can do that it really becomes a powerful means by which to meet them where they're at and ultimately help them get to where they want to be.
That's awesome. I love that. Is that the book of the month behind you?
This is the book of the month, Fans First by the Jesse Cole. I always joke, or not joke, I tell truthfully, my students are always kind of iffy on the LinkedIn craze, right? And so one of the things I tell them is, I was like, does anybody know the Savannah Bananas? And they're, yeah, absolutely, a good solid 50% of them. If you don't, 100% you need to find out about the Savannah Bananas. The organizational strategy, phenomenal. But he wrote the book Fans First, and I tell them, I am first degree connections with Jesse Cole. Jesse Cole doesn't know me from Adam. I'd never talked to Jesse Cole in my life, but I connected with him because I believe in his mission. He apparently sees something about me that he wants, or he's just the kind of guy that connects everybody. And now I could theoretically hop into the DMs of one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world. And so that's kind of my joking story of, the power of LinkedIn and the ability to connect and how powerful your network is. I will probably, not in any recent near future, text Jesse Cole, but there may come a time where I want to, get an opportunity to get him in front of my students or partner with him. Who knows, right? And so it's all the power of connections is phenomenal. So the book Fans First, for anybody who's still listening and can't see over my shoulder, is by Jesse Cole and the Savannah Bananas, and it talks about how do you get your clients to be raving fans. And it's all about kind of what we're talking about here, which is that idea of understanding their pain points and then meeting them where they're at. I'll give you an example if you don't mind me sharing. Kristin, I don't know why you would, but is imagine, so Savannah Bananas, if nobody knows the story, the Savannah Bananas are a baseball team on the surface, but they're really an entertainment team. It's baseball meets the Barnum and Bailey circus, right? It's phenomenal. It's all about entertainment, and they've completely changed the name of the game of baseball. So they've taken the game and they've made it 2 hours max. There's literally a timer on the screen that counts down from 2 hours, and when it hits 2 hours, the game is done, right? Like we ain't going to the ninth inning stretch, right? There's so many different rules. Like you can't walk, right? You gotta hit the ball, or else like the final walk is you have to try to get to the base. And if you do walk, all of the in player fields have to touch the ball before they get it to first base. So like that's the rule of like if you end up walking. So there's no on and on about the different balls and strikes and foul balls or whatever. There's no stepping out of the plate. So they pitch, the ball gets back to the pitcher, they pitch. I remember there was one time they did 3 strikes within a matter of like 20 seconds. And if anybody who watches baseball, that's astronomically fast, right? It's just boom, boom, boom. And so they've just completely changed the entire structure of baseball to make it more entertaining. And then you add in pyrotechnics and walkouts that are done to, call me maybe, and just all sorts of stuff. It's crazy. Right. And that's just a sliver of what they really focus on. Right. Those were things that have changed the name of the game. And a lot of traditionalists are not happy about that. But I'll give you an example of something else that goes beyond just, silly antics to engage with your fans. If you go to a baseball game, how much money do you think you're going to spend on food? Not the ticket, but just food, beverage, food, everything.
It would probably be about $30.
Yeah, if you're not buying too much, I think that's reasonable, right? Now, I don't know about alcoholic drinks, but when you buy a ticket for the Savannah Bananas games, and it was recently, from what I remember, like $35. It's no more than 50 for a ticket. There's a lot of scalpers out there selling them for a lot more. Don't buy it. But if you go to the game and you buy a ticket, all of your food and drinks are included. All of them, right? Like there's no nickeling, no diming. You get everything that you want as a part of that. On top of that, so if that's not enough, they had ghost clients that are ghost customers that went in that worked for the company, and they constantly are kind of getting a gauge of the experience. So even Jesse Cole goes in undercover and checks out these things, but he has lots of people who do this. The wait time for one of those lines, imagine all you can eat at a baseball game. Those lines are going to be astronomical, right? 5 minutes is as long as a person waited in line to get their food. And we're talking burgers and popcorn and everything. So it's just a really powerful message. And he explains everything in the Fans First book, his entire framework for how he approaches it, right? He was on the show with Gary Vee when they first started off, trying to figure out like ways to really engage and blow this thing up. Now they have entire leagues. They go nationwide. They sell out every stadium. There's thousands of people who are on the wait list for these games, right? It's astronomical. And he outlines the entire thing in the book, but it all comes back to what is the value that you hope to bring to these individuals, and do you listen to them when they complain or when they talk or when they share, and do you act on that? And I think that that's a really powerful tale of how to meet people where they're at in a place where traditionally you just said that's the way it is. We do 9 innings, we walk the batters, we do all these things this way. And Jesse and his team said, no, we're going to do it the way the fans want it. And so they put fans first. So it's a great book. It's a great story. I would love it if people checked it out. If they're in any way, shape, or form part of customer service, which if you have a business, you're part of customer service.
Awesome. I'll add it to the list.
I don't think you should.
Yeah.
As someone who knows you, I love books, and I'm going to recommend them till I'm blue in the face. But my book of the month series, right? It's called Book on the Shelf because it's on the shelf. One of the things I do is I tell people, why shouldn't you read this book, right? And so I'm not one for adding it to the list. So add it to the secondary list of books that you might get to if you get really, really bored. But I know your list is already pretty well stacked up. So I know how much you enjoy learning.
Yeah.
I'll just give you a synopsis off air. How about that? Save you some time.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. The Spark Notes. That'd be awesome.
Absolutely. So I'm excited for some questions today. I'm looking forward to, I think some of the theme around this is business ownership and what people need to be thinking about as they consider the crazy and wacky world in which we currently live in. So I'm excited to talk a little bit more about this and see what we can come up with.
Just got a comment from Josh on LinkedIn, just talking about the Fans First book. And he was just saying, not a question, it was just a comment about his idea of removing the friction for your customers. It's something that he preaches, and he loves that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Everything that we're ever looking for, consumers especially, is convenience. So if you're making something more difficult, you're less likely to have
100%. Yeah, 100%. Thanks for the input, Josh. Josh, I'd love to hear it. A, if you have a question, happy to hear it. But two, what ways you're reducing friction in your organization and what industry you're in. So if you're still on and have a little time, I'd love to hear that. But you're absolutely correct, Kristin. People want convenience now more than ever. I always joked. My background was in wildlife biology. A lot of people don't realize that. I'm a hoot on a hike. But I always joked about this idea of like, it used to be, you'd spend several weeks waiting for something to come in, and you'd be ecstatic when it got to your door because you didn't have to go get it, build it, buy it, whatever. Now you can order a king cobra and have it delivered to your front door within a matter of 2 days, right? Like, I never really truly tested that, but I have no doubt in my mind that you could do that, right? Maybe you need a permit, which would take 10 seconds on the internet, but people don't just value convenience anymore. They expect it. It's an expectation, which I could get into the psychology of what that's doing to our levels of gratitude in our society, but let's not, because that's another story. But if you're gonna have customers in this century and in this time, convenience is the name of the game. And so you have to ask yourself, how do you reduce friction, as Josh so eloquently put it, and Jesse put in his book? Eliminating friction is by far the number one. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to change the way that you're doing things, but it can be such a simple thing. For instance, I'm on the committee for the United Way right now, and I'm in charge of the new audiences committee. So basically, how do we get people who've never been a part of the United Way to go, hey, I don't know anything about you, but sure, here's some money or here's some time or whatever. And one of the first things I'm doing is trying to look at what's the friction of giving you money. Like, how long does it take? How many clicks? That's a really important, like, how many times do I have to click on something before I can actually put in my credit card? How hard is it to put in your credit card? There's so many things that can cause friction in this world, to where if you make it just 1 or 2 clicks harder than it needs to be, well, I just got a ping from a text message from my friend, and now I'm off to that, and I'm never coming back to this page. And so friction right now, to your point, is a phenomenally difficult conversation to have, because our not only is friction bad in general, but now the vying of our attention in coupling with that friction makes it really, really hard to capture their attention and keep it long enough to get them to take the action, unless they're sitting right in front of you, which is just no longer really the case. So yeah, it's a great point, Josh.
Mm-hmm. Josh said, we've been working to make it smoother, fewer touches for everyone involved, and things should be automatic except for the actual interaction. We're trying to remove steps.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that, buddy. I really, really appreciate that. Just out of curiosity, Josh, because I don't know his last name. He's probably talking to me like I know him. I probably do, but just curiosity. What's the thing you're selling in what industry? I'm very, very interested to hear, because it's a lot of people see these things as mutually exclusive. Well, I don't sell a baseball team, so my problems are different. No, they're not. The system of of buying something, selling something. Obviously, you can make it more complex, but at the end of the day, it comes down to how easy is it for somebody to understand your value and then find the way to give you money in exchange for that value. Like that's what we're looking at. And so I'm always interested to hear people's takes on that, for sure.
He said podcasting.
Podcasting. Oh, Josh. Hey, buddy. I know who you are. By the way, Josh, Pedal Stomper Productions, phenomenal podcasting company. They do a tremendous job of helping you hone in on, like, what's your message, what's your mission. We've used them a ton in our podcast. So shout out to Josh Trokey. He is a phenomenal guy. So if you have a podcast, and I don't think podcast people recommend podcasts to me all the time. I'm like, I'm too busy making one to listen to them, but I try. But if you do have a podcast, shout out to Pedal Stomper Productions. He can help you out a lot. So Josh, thank you, buddy. I appreciate you 100%. Right. Like, so when you think about podcasters as your customer, like for me, for instance, I love to talk. Who knew? I don't like to do all the stuff that it takes to get it in front of people. So like people like Josh, that's what he's working on. We had tons of conversations about, like, what's the offer, and how do you help me get in front of people, and then how do you make that actually sell or traction to the point where people are actually listening and want to be a part of it. So even the idea of podcasting, if I can't get your attention in the first 15 to 20 seconds, you're probably going to click next. And so you have to put that hook at the beginning of the podcast, and then you have to give enough value that they want to keep hearing it. You got to put out clips, because nobody's going to devote an hour of their time. Josh used to get on me all the time, and sorry, Josh, I still haven't changed, but he used to be like, hour-long episodes are too long. You gotta break them up into 30 minutes. And I'm like, well, I'll just throw out clips, and then people can get the nuggets. And if they really want to hear more, they'll come back and they'll listen. So that's a really phenomenal example of reducing friction to get the value across. So I love it, buddy.
He said, thanks, man. And yes, it's tough to listen when you're making. There's only so many hours in the day.
Yep, absolutely. Oh, also kudos to his new podcast that he's partnering with a gal. It's something about fix your business. I don't know. Josh, make sure you throw it in the comments, buddy. But you have a new podcast that you're putting out, not only helping others with theirs, but also a podcast. So make sure you put that in the comments, bud, because I'd love to promote it for sure. But phenomenal content about how to tactically work on your small business. So shout out to him. He's
Mhm.
doing phenomenal things when he's not eating
Mhm.
monster cookies from right next door to the butcher shop over in Ohio where he's from. Awesome. Cool. Cool. So
Awesome.
let's dive in. We got some questions, Kristin?
Yes, yeah. On that note of just fixing your business, we've got an anonymous question
Hmm.
of what leadership habits do I need to unlearn or evolve at this stage of my career? And their stage of their career is a 45-year-old business owner juggling growth, uncertainty, families, responsibilities, health, all the things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. I love that.
Lots to unlearn.
There's always stuff to unlearn. Oh man, I think the first step is really recognizing like you have a lot of power in what you already know, and like not everything you're doing is wrong. We get so caught up, a lot of my background is in psychology, right? And so we get so caught up in all the negatives because that's how we're wired, for negative emotions for the one that we have that is positive. And so we're going to always constantly be seeing the negative no matter what, right? It doesn't matter how successful I am. Here are the four things that I did wrong. And that's how you grow, absolutely, shoring up your weaknesses. But I also think it's really important to understand your strengths as well, because once you understand your strengths, then you're going to stop being so blindsided by all your weaknesses all the time and so hyper focused on that. So there's a organization that, through the positive psychology branch of Penn, that it's called Virtues in Action, VIA, and there's a website, I believe it's VIA Strengths. And it basically breaks down all of the different character strengths that a human can have. There's 24 of them, and they're fit within 6 virtues, which include things like wisdom, um, transcendence, humanity. Like so, there are 6 virtues with 24 total character strengths. And so, my number one character strength is forgiveness, or sorry, it's fairness. Forgiveness is like my fourth. It's fairness. And for a long time, I didn't know that. And so when I would play with my 6-year-old son and he would change the rules of the game so he could win, I mean, I got really mad. I mean, I'm talking an adult man getting like angry at his 6-year-old son and like, I'm not playing anymore if you're going to change the rules. And I didn't know why. And it was because fairness is so important to me, and when he changed the rules it wasn't fair. Now I don't care if I lose, right? Whatever, not a big deal. I still like to win. But what I do care about is that he understands that the world's not going to change for him, and that everybody gets a fair shot at success, whatever that looks like. And so why is that important and how do I translate it? Well, in business, if I'm a leader, then I need to recognize that that's one of my strengths, so that when somebody does something that goes against that idea of fairness, somebody's pulling the I got seniority card, instead of me getting all huffy and puffy and being like, oh, what a jerk, this person doesn't get it, yada yada, I can recognize, oh, this is me wanting things to be fair. And so then I can really hone in on that concept and make sure that I understand where that's coming from, so I can come to that conversation a little bit more clear-headed instead of it being emotional. So I think that's one piece, is understanding your strengths. The other piece is that very often, almost always, I would say, your weaknesses are just the manifestation of the opposite end of the spectrum of your strengths. And so, one of my favorite quotes: no matter how flat you make a pancake, there's always two sides. So, if I'm really adamant about being fair, then I may lose opportunities to grow somebody in a space and give them a chance because I overemphasize this idea of being fair. I may think that everything needs to be kind of black and white, and this isn't the case. I've grown a little bit in my leadership, but that may be a weakness of mine because I'm so focused on things being fair that I miss the opportunity to promote somebody, right? Or I'm so forgiving, which is one of my core values, that people walk all over me. Or something I do have an issue with personally is I take the emotions of other people very seriously. I am constantly concerned about the people around me and what they're thinking and how they're acting. Like if the person behind me is tailgating me, like my first thought is I'm doing something wrong. Now I'm also like, hey jerk, get off my tailgate. But I'm thinking, okay, do I need to get out of the way? What's going on? I don't want to. Oh, the light's green. I got to go. Right. It's a little bit of the Midwesterner in me as well. Always making sure, oh, sorry, let me scooch past you. So that's the problem with a lot of these things. So if I know my strengths, I can recognize in them the weaknesses that come as an association of that. So if you're really sure-footed and level-headed and you can find direction very, very quickly, you're probably also the person that steps on people and doesn't really care about their emotions and kind of burns bridges along the way because you just see the path and you forget that you have to bring people along. And so knowing that can allow you to recognize, okay, yeah, I do see direction, but that doesn't mean I have to step on people or leave them behind as I move forward. I can have direction and bring people alongside. So I think by knowing our strengths, that's what's going to allow us to recognize what we need to let go of, which could be a number of things. Oftentimes for leaders, it's thinking you have all the answers. That's one that's been around for a number of years, and everybody's like, "Oh yeah, I know that, but what's next?" It's like, well, revisit because there's a really good chance you're sitting on a top of a mountain. I think it's 84% of small business owners don't share their fears and their challenges with the rest of the world, right? And so if you're not sharing your fears and your challenges, that's you being unwilling to admit you don't know everything, and therefore you're getting stuck in a cycle of these negative thoughts and misunderstandings, and your team's not moving forward. And I see this all the time in leaders who think they have to be the answer to everything's problems and not sharing, like, I don't know that. And that just stifles, not only does it stifle growth and progress, but it also stifles your team because they can't shine because they're waiting for you to give them direction because you've made it very clear that if there's an answer that's going to come from this place, it's going to be from me. And so those are some things that I think people really need to recognize as we step into this moving forward. And nobody knows anything anymore. Let's be perfectly frank. But if we come together and we honor each other's strengths and abilities, we're going to get a lot more done.
How do you build a culture then that sustains motivation during uncertain times as a leader?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. A couple thoughts. I'm going to start off with one that I tout on a regular basis, which is until we know what we're trying to accomplish, it's really hard to know if we're going in the right direction. Take, for example, I use this example a lot with people, but Kodak versus Nikon. A lot of people know Nikon is a camera company. Not very many people know Kodak. And the reason is because, and Kodak, not Kodiak, the protein pancakes, which are delicious. Kodak was a company that rivaled Nikon for a number of years in photography. And it was during the time where both of them were in, film, like physical film, right? Like the kind that you used to put in a camera and wind up, and then you'd have to take it in a dark room and blah, blah, blah. Like I was in the yearbook, and so I actually remember going into the dark room with the spinny door and have to dunk the negatives into some solution and move it to this next to stop it. Yeah, I'm old. And so the Kodak, when digital film started to become a thing, Kodak's like, nope, we do film. That's all we do, right? Where Nikon was more under the belief we capture moments. And so, however you capture moments is fine. You can do that in a number of different ways. Does digital allow us to? Yeah, because it's unlimited film. Where Kodak was like, no, we do film. And lo and behold, Nikon skyrocketed and Kodak didn't. But it was because Nikon was very understanding and very aware of why they do what they do and the values that they're living by. And so when time came to change, and it will change, there's no change is the only constant, right? When times change, then you can step back into those feelings of what do I believe in? What's true? What do I have to make sure doesn't change as things around me change, so that you can step back into those values and that vision. And so Kodak couldn't do that. Kodak said, we make physical film. Well, you don't anymore, right? Like whether you want to or not is irrelevant because, again, like we talked about earlier in the show, your customers dictate what value they're going to get from you. And if they don't want digital film or they don't want physical film, they're not going to buy from you, in which case you're not a business anymore. And so I think it really boils down to, do you understand? And people always say, yeah, I'm a value-based person. Then list them, show, like put them down on paper. I get a little adamant about this. Like List your core values. What are they? Why do you believe those are important? How do you live by them every day? Here at Next Better, the core values of the company are my core values, which is very common for startups, right? It's purpose, betterment, responsibility, empathy, and gratitude. And I don't want to waste people's time explaining those deeply, but those are I understand why those are our core values, and they lead and they guide us. And however our offerings change throughout the years, those things will remain the same as long as the company believes that those things are important. And so it may be through coaching, it may be through strategies for event management, it may be, there's so many opportunities where those core values can be expressed. But what matters is that when things change, that will remain the same. I can give you one more example. I worked with an organization that's a petroleum filtering service. So they go around and they filter fuel, right? If they believe that their company is a fuel filtering service, that might be a problem later in life when EVs become more and more impactful, right? Or more and more prevalent. And so if all they believe is they're a fuel filtering service, well, then the time comes that they don't filter fuel anymore. Now, who are they? Right. And so their focus is not necessarily on their service, it's how they live their life. And so their core values, and we actually did this, and we developed a culture guide which allowed them to express their core values, but also they could implement them into everything that they do, how they hired, how they trained people, how they onboarded them, how they rewarded them, how they recognized them, everything. But their core values are what define them. So things like agility, things like ownership, um, um, it's been a little while since I helped them develop their program, but those were the things that really established. Determination was another one. Those were the things that established who they are and what they did. And those can be done filtering fuels or filtering other fluids that are not related to petroleum. It can be related to a service where they deliver things through the mechanisms that they have. And so that remains the same when everything else becomes uncertain. We're still agile. In fact, agility is wonderful in a world where things change on a dime. And so they can lean back into those things as time goes. And when time comes to change, it's easier to have a conversation with your team. Hey guys, we don't filter fuel anymore. We provide services to, for water filtration in third world countries. Okay. Oh, that was easy. Why was that so easy? Because they're not there to filter fuel. They're there to believe in determination and ownership and agility. And so it's easier for your company and your people to go through those transitions of change because they're there for a very different reason than we sell this product, we do this service, we are coaches, or we are implementers, or whatever it happens to be. And so that to me is the most powerful way to help lead through uncertainty, is by establishing those early. Now, some companies have already done that. That's great. If you haven't done it yet, well, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is right now. So start having those conversations. What do we believe in here? What matters to us? If we didn't filter fuel anymore, what would we be doing and how would we want to do it? Those are some really powerful questions to have, because the worst time to prepare for a disaster is the day that it's knocking on your door.
Very powerful.
Yeah.
Strong values definitely go a long way.
I would argue that they're one of the only ways, right?
Mm-hmm. We have a pretty general question, but definitely one that I know you will be able to dive into.
Ooh, okay.
How do
No
I
pressure.
find fulfillment beyond just financial success?
I love that. Very
It's
general.
easy, yeah, but it's so easy to get drawn to financial success and thinking that's the only thing that is. I think subconsciously we're thinking that's the only thing that's going to get me status, that's the only thing that's going to make me accepted, and that's why I want it, and nothing else is going to make me fulfilled.
Sure. Yeah. There's also a secondary movement that's happening where everybody's like, oh, fulfillment matters more than money. And that's a dangerous conversation to have as well. Because then you have a bunch of people that are sitting around waiting to be fulfilled by some sort of external factor, right? I think one of the bigger fears that I have right now is a bunch of people sitting around waiting for the world to give them what they want because they think that fulfillment comes from just accepting stuff, right? So, like in the Buddhist tradition, acceptance is a powerful method by which to live a more fulfilling life because the Buddhism, which a lot of people don't know realize this, but Buddhism isn't a religion. It's a practice, right? It's a spiritual practice where you connect with something bigger than yourself. But you can be a Christian and be Buddhist at the same time. So, little fun fact. And so Buddhism talks about this idea that attachment is the kind of the root of suffering because when we get attached to things, money, people, status, these types of things. And then when those things ultimately fade away, we suffer because we've been attached to them. We're attached to our physical health. We're attached to all these things. And so the idea is if you can become unattached, not detached from the world, but unattached from things, you can appreciate them more because you don't expect them, right? Coming back to the king cobra thing, right? Like, oh, my coffee wasn't here in 4 hours. How can I, the people that get angry. I heard a woman screaming at the top of her lungs because somebody took 2 extra seconds to leave the light, right? It's like, whoo, we got some priority shifts to do if 2 seconds of our day is what it takes to set you off. But attachment is a really powerful thing that keeps us from being able to do that, being able to appreciate our lives. And so I think one of the things that we have to realize is that fulfillment isn't a matter of just accepting things as they are. It's an active pursuit, right? You have to do something to be fulfilled. Now, that doesn't mean you have to make money to be fulfilled. It doesn't mean you have to have 1 million followers to be fulfilled, but it does mean you have to contribute something in some way. I think where a lot of people get mixed up in is they don't understand what meaningful contribution they want to make to the world. So you mentioned the idea that I would be able to speak into this, and you're 100% correct because this is literally what I've dedicated my entire life to. My purpose in life is to help people find direction towards fulfilling lives so that they can contribute meaningfully to the world. But the second part is really, really important. I believe that a fulfilling life is one in which we are dedicated to a worthwhile pursuit because it is the act of giving, the act of propelling, the act of contributing that gives us this sense of fulfillment. And it's only through that we're allowed to, in my opinion, be fulfilled. Now, that could be to one child. It could be your child. It could be to a group of people in need. It could be to the entire world, right? There are people in this world that think that getting us to Mars is the way that we're contributing to the world because they think, maybe Earth isn't the final destination. And so it's not my place to tell people what is and is not fulfilling, nor is it anybody's place, right? That's why I don't say I give you a fulfilling life. I don't hand people fulfilling lives. I help them find the direction towards a fulfilling life. And there are frameworks, there are books that help you think through that. Martin Seligman's positive psychology process, which is PERMA, right? So positive relationships, engagement, meaning, and positive relationships, engagement, no, sorry, positive emotions. One more time. We're going to scrap all that, clip it here. PERMA from Martin Seligman's positive psychology is positive emotions, engagement in what you do, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment, right? Those are the 5 things that people do in and of themselves in order to live a positive and fulfilling life. And so that's one framework. There are tons out there. Arthur Brooks is another person talking about happiness right now. There's Angela Duckworth, who's out there. James Pawlowski, I can't say his name very well, but he's in positive psychology. All of these people are talking about flourishing, right? The idea of flourishing. And so there's so many frameworks, but ultimately it comes down to what are you trying to do to contribute to the world in such a way that it brings you fulfillment? And that is an internal quest. That is not an external validation. There may be people along the way. I've dedicated my life to doing it as a coach. There may be people along the way that help you figure it out, but they can't tell you what it is, right? I tell people when I work with you, I'm not painting on a canvas. I'm not adding more to your life's canvas. I'm a sculptor, and I'm chipping away all the stuff that ultimately doesn't matter so that you can get to the stuff that does matter deep down on the inside. And you can stop carrying the weight of all the other stuff because it keeps you from moving forward towards what you want out of life. So, to answer your question, Kristin, of what does it take to live a fulfilling life, that's ultimately up to you. There are frameworks along the way, and I duly suggest to anybody that they find a framework and perhaps a facilitator to help them on that quest. But that's the question you should spend the rest of your life answering.
I cannot agree more.
I love it. I love it. Great question.
Yeah, yes. We've got another question, anonymous, about how do I balance ambition with gratitude for what I've already achieved?
I love that.
Relates to what we were talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's an age-old question. I mean, most of my clients, as people know, are high achievers. They want more, but they also struggle with this internal sense of why can't I just be satisfied? And so my belief is why not have both? I don't know why in our society we've gotten to this assumption that you can't be grateful and striving, right? Satisfied, but also wanting to accomplish more. What's wrong with that, right? Bill Gates has done a million. He could stop today and have done more for this world than most people could even imagine. But why not keep going, right? You got the time, you got the experience, right? One of my favorite quotes is, and I don't know who said it. I've never heard it from anybody but me, but I'm sure somebody smarter than me said it once, right? But you are as young today as you will ever be, and you're more experienced now than you have ever been. And that will always be true. So for those people who are, are at 70 and they're like, or 65, 50, I want to retire sooner. I want to retire sooner. You maybe stop working for money, trading your time for money for sure. But get rid of this idea of work and ask yourself and turn it into contribution. What do I want to continue to contribute to the world with the time I have left? If you spend 65 years becoming the best carpenter in the world, and then you just give that up and just let it die for the next 15 to 20 years, right? Yeah, don't trade your time. Don't make the stuff anymore. But teach somebody else how to do it, right? Pour into youthful individuals who have never picked up a hammer in their life and teach them how to build something so that it passes on. And so I think that that's really, really important, is that we recognize the difference between like accomplishment and just making more money, collecting more stuff, right? Arthur Brooks has a really, really elegant way of putting this. So I'm going to share his ideas because I don't think I could say it any better myself. And he's for people who don't know Arthur Brooks, he wrote Strength to Strength. He wrote another book that's behind me, and I never get the name right, which is Build the Life You Want, with some woman named Oprah Winfrey. I don't know if anybody's ever heard her. Just kidding. She ain't going to listen to my show, but if she does, hey, Oprah, thanks for joining us. But he's a Harvard psychologist who focuses on happiness, right? And his belief is satisfaction. So people who are listening, write this down, right? Write it down in a mathematical formula for satisfaction. Satisfaction equals once divided by halves. So satisfaction equals once divided by halves. The less that you want, flip the script. Satisfaction is halves divided by once. There we go. Satisfaction is halves divided by once. So hopefully you used a whiteboard. That's why I use a whiteboard, because I mess up all the time. So satisfaction is halves divided by once. So the more you have in your life and the less you want, the more satisfied you will be. Those two numbers cannot be zero, but you can increase the halves and decrease the ones drastically. In fact, he does with his students, he does an activity where he does a reverse bucket list. Every year, he does it for himself. He lists all the things that he wants and he scratches them out. And he tells himself, I don't need that, right? One of the more recent ones that he shared was his political beliefs. He's like, I need to let these go a lot more because they're keeping me from being the person that I want to be. And so he still has opinions, right, which are much easier for adapting, but his beliefs are a little bit less because it's dividing him and pushing him away from the people he cares about most. And so what I love about that mathematical equation is, one, it's very easy to understand, right? The more you have and the less you want, the bigger that number is. And even more poignantly is the denominator is much easier to adjust than the numerator, right? Like you can just, like, the faster you can get rid of the stuff you want, right? Like the list of expectations in your life, then the faster your satisfaction goes up. But the first number, which is the halves, a lot of people don't realize this because a lot of people are going to listen to that. Yeah, but I don't have all the stuff that I want. Well, first of all, you just answered the problem, and like that in and of itself is its own redundancy, right? Like if you want it, then get rid of that piece, right? But the other powerful thing about the halves is halves are simply a perception of all of the things that you possess. And what that really boils down to is gratitude. Because I could sit here and say, I don't have a lot. But I could also sit here and say, look at all these books that I have accumulated, all the knowledge that's behind me. Even just in this room, I have 2 monitors that allow me to do the work that I do, 2 lights, a beautiful setup. I have, paneling. I built this office out exactly for this purpose, which is to be able to share my love for all of the stuff that I do, right? It's in a barn with all of my gym equipment. It's on a property that allows us to do all sorts of stuff as a family. Like, if I just went and listed every single thing that I was grateful for, my halves would be astronomical, right? Not to mention all the things that we typically take for granted, which are things like relationships and love and running water and food and water, shelter space. And so the halves can be very easily increased with a better sense of gratitude. And then the wants become, okay, let's make a list of all the things that we want. And then let's start to really ask ourselves, why do I want this? Well, I want this so that more people think I'm cool, right? Why do I want this? I want this because, like, one of my wants is very, very, very stupid. It's very, like, externally focused on validation, right? I want a C8 Stingray Corvette. Right. And the reason is because there's a few different reasons. One, I just think they look really cool. The engine is in the middle, so it's like the most affordable luxury sports car, because the thing is, I'm not into cars. I don't even like cars that much. Like, I'm like, cars are a thing to get me from A to B, and my legacy does that just fine. But it's that idea of that external validation, right? And so I asked myself, why do I want this? I want it for other people to think I'm good at what I do, or for other people to think that I have a lot of money, or for my family, my in-laws who love Corvettes to think that I make good decisions with my cars, right? Like, there's a number of things for why. And if you really like cars, if that's something that brings you a lot of satisfaction, then by all means, buy the car. I don't really like cars. So all of those reasons for wanting that are ridiculous. And the amount of effort and the amount of just like sheer stress of having to deal with an extra payment just for a toy that will probably not make people like me anymore. Because if you don't like me, you don't like me, right? And if you do like me, it's not my car that makes you like me. Like, it's just ridiculous. And so really questioning those halves, or sorry, increasing those halves through gratitude, and questioning those wants, and really asking yourself why you want it, so you reduce that is how you can increase satisfaction. And then you can still want stuff, but make it stuff that actually matters. Better relationships with my family, better opportunities for my kids, the ability to donate to causes I believe in, right? That's something that drives me. And so when I see, millionaires, my thought no longer goes to what's their car. It's like, how much money did they give away in charity last year? Like that's what I want to do. That's what I want to drive for.
Do you find that when you focus on your halves, you want less just through the pure nature of realizing how much you have and being grateful for it? Because one, I think you just are able to, by thinking about what you're grateful for, you're able to just spend more time thinking about what you have. rather than thinking about what you want. But at least for me, I find that when I think about everything I'm grateful for, I'm like, what more could I possibly want?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it would be easy for me to say yes, for a
Mhm.
couple different reasons, but I'm gonna put a caveat to it here in a second. But yeah, absolutely. Like your glass is always gonna be full. It's either gonna be full of crappy water or clean water, right? The clean water is the gratitude. The crappy water is the, oh, I don't have enough in my life. Want, right? And so it's going to be full one way or the other because you're never going to stop thinking. But if you're going to think about the things you already have. And as a result, you have a lot less time and capacity to think about the things you don't want. So, I mean, just physiologically, if you're focusing on good things all the time, you're not going to have time to focus on the bad things. There's also scientific evidence, research proof that shows that when you focus on gratitude, your mood increases. There's a practice called 3 what went wells, that through positive psychology, and they found that when you wrote down 3 things that went well that day and what you did to make them happen, right? Like that's the big thing, is like, what actions did I take to express this? The good mood of those individuals lasted for 6 months after the practice had been canceled, right? So like it has been proven to increase your positive mood. So gratitude is huge. I would say that one thing that I would, the caveat that I would share to that is, um, it's, knowing all of the things that you have doesn't necessarily mean you want to stop getting more things. Again, you want to continue to contribute meaningfully to the world, and so I would just challenge people that if you want to strive for more things, just make sure that the KPIs, the metrics that you're using, align with your values more than they align with your pocketbook. So if you're going to measure the things that you're doing to succeed, like ask yourself what success looks like. Like for me right now, one of the things I measure success with is how much time am I spending with my son? And by the societal norms, I'm not super successful. I don't have a huge bank account. But by my standards, I'm doing really well. Why is that? Because my son just 2 nights ago asked me to read a book that's called, um, World's Best Dad. And every page he told me, sorry, I'm going to get a little emotional. Every page he told me, that's you. That's how I feel about you, right? Like you're cooler than a million popsicles. And he would say, like, yeah, that you are cooler than a million popsicles. And my son loves popsicles. So that to me was worth more. Dude, I don't, you could say, here's $500,000. You can take this if it mean, you can trade this for how your son feels about you. You can get out of here. Right? That $500,000 can't buy that. And so that's the metric that I'm using. Now, that doesn't mean I still don't want more money, because more money is a tool that allows me to do good things and serve the people around me. That's what I believe about money. And so the outcome is the serving people around me. And I have to remind myself that's the metric that we're going for, not the tool, right? Like having a bigger hammer doesn't make you a better carpenter. It's, can you make things that are meaningful and valuable to the people that want them, right? The size of your hammer is only relevant to the outcome, which is, are you contributing meaningfully to the world?
Very powerful. I think we've
Well,
got time for one more question.
we'll try it out, and if
Um,
not, we'll throw
yeah,
it in next week,
yeah,
weeks, two
absolutely.
weeks, whenever time is relevant.
It is. How do I keep my energy and focus sharp while juggling so many demands? This is
Ooh, I
also
love it.
coming from a business owner with kids.
Yep. Energy sharp. I love it. You got to know what gives you energy, and
Mm.
then you got to do more of that. You got to realize that you are not a battery. This whole, like, or even more poignantly, you kind of are like a battery, and you drain relatively quickly, especially when you're doing things that don't fulfill you. And so there's so many different ways to address that energy drain. One is you can slow the energy drain. Two, you can charge up better. Preferably you do both, right? So it's so funny, people denounce the idea that sleep is important. Like if you look like that, Kristin, because you and I both get it, right? But there are so many people in this world that if I told them 5 hours of sleep isn't enough, they'd be like, "Oh no, I'm a business owner. I can do 5 hours of sleep." No, it's not enough. Sorry about you. Like I will fight you. And if you think that, I'm sorry, you've just been lied to. And that's all there is to it. 7 hours of sleep is barely minimal to get by. And so, but then they say, well, I have too much stuff going on. I have too many priorities, blah, blah, blah. Well, then you have to drop something, right? Because your ability to sleep is the number one performance enhancer. Like the best of the best in the world aren't sacrificing sleep. I promise you that. They're sacrificing a lot of stuff, but it ain't sleep. And so we just think more is better, and that's not true. Better is better. So recharging the batteries, and there's tons of research out there. I'll point to Andrew Huberman is a huge guy in sleep. Peter Attia is a phenomenal resource for sleep. There's tons of just people who are literally sleep doctors. So sleep is phenomenal. That's how, like, if I were to tell people, hey, I want you to charge your phone, but don't plug it in, you'd be like, that's ridiculous and kind of stupid. Why would you ever say that? Well, it's the same thing as saying, I want you to have more energy, but don't sleep. Just find a different ways. Chug the coffee, right? And so those are, by the way, chugging coffee is like putting your phone on battery saver mode. You don't get more done. By the way, I drink coffee, so shout out to all the coffee drinkers. You don't get more done because you drink more coffee, right? You just slow. Really, coffee, all it does is it shuts down the fatigue mechanisms in your body, right? It just slows the process of fatigue, but it doesn't make you more productive necessarily. In fact, sometimes it can make you way too jittery to get things done. And so again, it goes back to, without trying to go too much on a tangent, it goes back to how do you recharge and how do you slow the drain? Coffee can be a part, but a lot of times it's you're doing too much that doesn't matter. I'm currently going through this cycle right now, and it happens all the time. I have to reestablish or reassess what things I'm doing that are bringing me joy and money, right? Because ultimately I got to bring value to the world and to my family. But also, what are the things that I'm doing that are no longer serving me, and getting rid of those things so that they're not draining my energy for no reason. And so it takes time. That's one of the things I do with my clients is like that first step is like finding some space, like getting rid of things that don't matter, reassessing so that you can move forward to do things that do matter. I'll give you an example. One of my clients, phenomenal human, is currently chairing a campaign for a very, very large nonprofit organization. I mean, we're trying to make $4.5 million. And when they first came to me, they're like, I don't know if I want to do this. This is so much work, right? And so we had to reestablish what it meant to do this thing, right? And so we had already done work on their purpose and their values. And so really what it boiled down to is how do we align what you're doing with those things? How do we let go of things that are not part of who you are and what you're good at? How do we delegate tasks to people who actually like that stuff so that you're not drained to the gills? And dude, I cannot tell you, Chris, like she is flourishing. She is crushing it. She is having, in her words, she is having fun. Very rarely will somebody say that they're campaigning for an entire year for such a large event and having fun doing it while also doing their full-time job and raising 2 kids. So to say it can't be done, it's a lie to yourself and to everybody in the world that says just hustle more and do more. And so that's the key to understanding how do you get more done and how do you have more energy is you got to know what matters to you. And then you have to start making decisions that align with that and letting go of the things that don't, whether that means delegating it because you have somebody on your team that can do it better than you, or it means just not doing it anymore because it sucks. So you have to let it go. You have to quote unquote quit. But by quitting, you can focus on doing things that actually matter to you and the people that you love and you serve.
More is not better. Better is better.
That's right. And so for another so this guy, people know him a lot more than they know me, but Brendon Burchard, he founded High Performance Habits. He is a phenomenal coach. I mean, he is actively coaching for billionaires. I'm actively coaching for airs. I don't even know. I can't say. I don't know how low I can get it. No, I'm kidding. But he is really good at what he does, right? I aspire to do a lot of things that Brendon Burchard does, and he wrote the book High Performance Habits. And so this has a lot of talk about clarity, energy, necessity, productivity, influence, and courage. So those are the things that he talks about every high performer needs, whether you're a CEO or a mother of six, in order to live a successful life. So if you're talking more about energy and how to build habits that last, that's a phenomenal book for anybody who's out there trying to get more energy. So, and happy to talk more with them.
That was an awesome set of questions.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, great questions out there today.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we are at time. It's been an hour already. My friend Josh is cringing at how long I've been talking. But you know what?
He's probably gone.
Oh yeah, he's checked out. Nobody's still around except us. But you know what matters? We are still around, and that is what matters. So if you are still around though, and you want to check out more about what we have to offer at Next Better, then check out this AMA show. We do it every other week, and we go live. Although, you know, maybe we won't one day. I don't know. But what matters is that we are going to answer questions that you bring to us, and that's going to happen. That's going to continue to happen in one shape or form. We also have the Next Better podcast, and so we actually host that and the AMA show on our Next Better platform, which you can listen to on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you cast your pods, you can find us. So check out more. You can also check us out at nextbetter.com if you want to know more. But until the next time we meet, Kristin, thank you so much coming to us live from Colorado. Can't wait to continue to see how your background and life unfold. So thanks for joining us. And
I have one shout out from Josh from when he was replying to you. He had said, Chrissy Myers and I do the business fix.
Yes, the business fix. Thank you, Josh. And thank you, Kristin, for sharing that. Yeah, definitely a great podcast to check out if you are continuing to want to learn more about how to do things in your small business. That's what we talk about, and that's what he talks about. So until next time, I'm Coach Woody. Kristin, thank you so much. And you make it a great day.
See ya.